Hello and welcome to the Anonymous American Podcast. This is the Sunday edition, so it'll be a bit longer, fuller clips. It'll be like whole clips instead of just trying to get it condensed down so I can fit everything into a 10 to 15 minute period. But definitely if you like this podcast, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment below, email me, anonymousamericanpodcast at ProtonMail.com, and you can also donate to my Ethereum wallet, which is below in the description again. Go ahead and show you a little thing here. Just PayPal shutting down fundraising for Texas real estate agent charged in Capitol riot. Yes, I did mention this yesterday as well, but I'm just mentioning it again just to let you know this is why I'm not using PayPal at all for any donations. It will only be via Ethereum. But on with the show here, I'm just going to start off with a bit of talk about secession. I've been talking about secession on the Gab, and I think it's imminent. And a lot of people wonder, well, can you secede? And there's all these questions about it, but you need to stop asking if you can do it. Don't ask anymore, can I do it? The Founding Fathers have said this plenty of times, and the Constitution itself says you can pretty much do it. There's nothing in the Constitution that says a state cannot leave, and the 10th Amendment interprets anything that isn't included in this document is up to the people and the states to claim for themselves. The federal government has no claim on it. And we'll go ahead and start with a clip here. This is a couple of years old, by the way, but Texas has talked about secession for probably the past, couple of decades, but the past 10 years it's been very serious. And I think they actually have plans for it. But again, this is a clip from a couple of years ago. All sources below, but here you go.
Our next guest, serious stuff here. He wants Texas to secede from the Union, break away. He wrote a book about it, and the book is called Texit, Why and How Texas Will Leave the Union. Daniel Miller wrote the book, and he is also the president of the Texas Nationalist Movement. So, welcome to the program. Good to see you with us.
Great. Thanks for having me on.
Now, look, I've got a limited amount of time, so let's get right at it. Number one, why do you want to leave the Union?
Well, I'll tell you, there are a lot of reasons, but if you were to condense it down to what we hear from people on the street every day here in Texas, it boils down to this. Texans are sick and tired of being governed by 180,000 pages of federal laws, rules, and regulations administered by 440 separate agencies and 2.5 million unelected bureaucrats. At the end of the day, Texans believe that the best people to govern Texas are Texans.
Okay. I think you're making a political point, and it's well taken, but I don't think you've got a prayer of actually seceding from the Union. You need 2/3 majority in the House and the Senate to do that, and you've got to get a majority in 3/4 of all state legislatures. Not going to happen.
Yeah, and that's not true. And it's actually one of the things that I wrote about in the book. There is this misconception out there that somehow any state that's part of the Union needs permission from the other states to leave the Union, and that's not entirely the case. And I'll give you a great example of what that looks like. It's akin to saying that when the UK decided that they wanted to leave the European Union, that they had to have the blessing from all the other countries of the European Union. There is no constitutional prohibition here in the United States for any state to leave the Union.
I just got this from Judge Napolitano. You need 2/3 of the majority of 2/3 in the House, majority of 2/3 in the Senate, and you've got to get 3/4 of all state Isn't that in the Constitution? I mean, he's a constitutional scholar.
No, and look, with all due respect, and I do respect Judge Napolitano, that's just simply not correct. Look, the United States is governed by the Constitution, and when it comes to the issue of a state leaving the Union, the Constitution is silent. And in those areas where the Constitution is silent, under the 10th Amendment, those powers are reserved to the states and the people. So what you have to do is you have to look at what the law is here in Texas. And Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution is very plain, that the right to reform, alter, or abolish our form of government exists and resides solely with the people of Texas.
Okay, we do hear you, Daniel, and I'll put this to the judge himself, who's going to be on the show shortly. I think you're making a political point, and it's well taken. I think you haven't got a prayer of actually pulling this off. But I've got to leave it at that, Daniel. By all means, come back and argue with me at some point in the future, but that's where it stands now. Daniel Miller, thanks for joining us, sir. Appreciate it. Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you, Stuart.
Okay.
I like this guy, Stuart. He's awesome and amazing, but he definitely got this wrong. And if you are a strict constitutionalist, then you would interpret it as, yeah, you can. There's nothing in the Constitution that says you can't. You're just saying no because the federal authority doesn't want to. deal with that. But it's not up to the federal authority. This is an open-ended contract. Anyone who comes in can go out. You can leave. If the terms of the contract have been broken, you feel like you can leave. If you don't like the whatever reason, you can leave. And it's absolutely ridiculous. I also found out Texas has a weird thing in their constitution that somehow was approved and got through, where the state could break themselves up into 5 smaller states, which basically would give them 10 senators of power in one state. And they did this on purpose so they could preserve their republic representation and make sure they could be properly heard on a federal level. And that's the thing, is a lot of people have been scared of the Fed for a while. Then, talking about being scared of the Fed and the Fed going insane, here's a story about Nancy Pelosi wanting to gun down Americans. She had a very disturbing request for the National Guard, and you should definitely read into this article, but she was talking about actually wanting to shoot people down. Have a machine gun set up, so that way if people start coming up, you just start shooting them. And more and more has come out about what she's requested, because I talked about in other shows too. She's requested quite a bit of stuff, and I was very surprised to hear about that. And I'm just like, what things has she requested that we don't know about? Because she probably went in there with a laundry list of stuff and said, oh, well, can you go ahead and do this too? She basically wants to do a coup. It's absolutely insane. And then go ahead and move on to, again, why I'm really going into these stories for the Sunday edition, which is, laid back, lazy edition here, just gabbing on here and showing you the articles to give you the basic narrative, is why I've started this off with Texas secession specifically, is these are the reasons why Texas would be seceding and why other states would follow. Like with this case here, it shows you an accurate list of the 2020 election fraud cases. Shows 81 cases total, 30 still active, and not one single case was heard in court. Not one had the evidence actually argued. They were just taken down for standing or whatever insane reasoning they want to make up in their head. And then here's another insane clip for you, just to go ahead and show you even further the craziness of these leftists. They went ahead and for some reason, I'm not, with abortion, I'm either way. I feel like you can do it, but it shouldn't be paid for with taxpayer money at the very least. It's like, that's ridiculous. You should have to pay for it yourself. But here's some people forcing their views upon others and a church to celebrate it. Here's the clip.
This church teaches hate. Excuse me. It's Catholic setting pics. Row is the floor, demand more. Row is the floor, we demand more. Row is the floor, we demand more. 2, 4, 6, 8. This church teaches hate. 2, 4, 6, 8. This church teaches hate. 2, 4, 6, 8. This church teaches hate.
Please respect us. You have to leave.
Don't
Please
touch
respect
me.
us. Please respect us.
Let's go.
Please respect us. Please
2,
respect us.
4, 6, 8. This church teaches hate.
2, 4, 6, 8. This church teaches hate.
2, 4, 6, 8. This church teaches hate.
2, 4, 6, 8. This church teaches hate. Let go.
Let go.
Let go of her.
Get the fuck out.
Hey, fuck you. Fuck you. Let's go. Let's go here. Let go of her. Get your fucking hands off her. Let go. Then get your fucking hands off her. Let's go. No. Fuck you. Okay,
Let's go. Get off her.
Get off.
Get off of her.
Your church is a fucking hate church.
Stop putting your hands off her.
So funny that you teach the love of life when you teach people to hate and you harass clinics and you scare clinic providers and their families. You're violent and your language is violent. 2, 4, 6, 8. This church teaches hate. Don't fucking.
Yeah, and that's just to, again, go deeper and deeper into the insanity of the left and how far they've gone. Again, everything's sourced below. The articles, everything is sourced below. So please look into the sources. If you're interested in a story, go down there, look for it, click it, look into it, and just be able to envelop more into it, because I'm only showing you just a part of what's going on. But that was from Columbus, Ohio, by the way, and I got that video from a German who uploaded it. So that's hysterical. I mean, the U.S. media seems to have no interest in it whatsoever. But here's the next story. Again, more and more reasons why secession is looking prettier and prettier constantly. Like why they're just making it look like it is the only way out, really, truly, to be honest. But an article here showing you that they packed us together like sardines is what an actual National Guard person said. This story is definitely worth reading and looking into. But if you saw the video I showed of them or looked at the parking garage stuff and all that kind of thing, that's the conditions they're talking about. They're actually violating Geneva Convention rules, but not really, because these aren't prisoners of war. They're your own military. So I guess you can treat them any way you want. But if they're prisoners of war, well, that would have been unacceptable. And that is absolutely crazy. And again, just to show you this video, and you kind of understand why the National Guard turned their backs, on top of the fact that the election was all screwed up anyway. But this is just to compound it with even more.
Soldados, militares e policiais.
So yeah, then we move on to this story here with 200 National Guard members testing positive, which means there's probably even more who are testing positive or will be positive and will have this disease. This is just what we're finding out now. And so they couldn't even give them conditions good enough that would actually fulfill their own FDA and government requirements for other people to follow to prevent this. That's the hilarious thing. This is just incredibly stupid. And then you wonder why they're pissed at you, why these states are pissed at you, why people are talking about what I was talking about, secession. And then to make it all up, here's this is what they did. If you saw these photo ops and stuff they've been doing the past couple of days just before the weekend, this is the so-called First Lady Jill Biden, the fake doctor, who go ahead and watch this clip here and just see what they do.
Stand at ease.
I just wanted to come today to say thank you to all of you for keeping me and my family safe. And I know that you've left your home states. The Bidens are a National Guard family. Our son Beau was Delaware Army National Guard. He served for a year in Iraq in 2008, 2009. So I'm a National Guard mom. And when I saw, the great job that you've done over the inauguration and all that you've done, and you've left your home states and you've come here to protect us, I just wanted to say thank you from President Biden and from the entire Biden family. So the White House baked you some chocolate chip cookies. I can't say that I baked them all myself, but so I wanted to give everybody a cookie. It's a small thank you for your service and your family service and all that you've done for our nation. I tell you that I truly appreciate all that you do. And the National Guard will always hold a special place in the heart of all the Bidens. So thank you. Thank you very much.
So yeah, there's been multiple photo ops and stuff of all this kind of thing, but I find it hilarious that the congressmen and women have actually delivered like pizza and food to them, and actually went to like the parking garage that they were shoved into and packed like sardines, with no heat or anything, and like one bathroom to share amongst all of them, packed in to a parking garage structure, like the actual parking garage. Yeah, I know, how insane is that? But yeah, that's obviously a PR move and just something that you did for the cameras. And look, I'm a National Guard mommy. Oh, and you just know they're all just thinking in their head, oh my God, really, this woman, really, this fake doctor is doing this. But here's the clip from Rand Paul on ABC, and they're pretty much just trying to shove words in his mouth. Again, everything's sourced below, but the article is like trying to push this whole like Rand Paul won't. He doesn't actually believe the election was stolen. He never said the words the election was stolen. What he's trying to do is approach it as, oh well, like I see there's evidence of fraud and we need to investigate. I'm trying to be impartial, kind of like innocent until proven guilty, but we obviously have suspicions and plenty of evidence to warrant an investigation and an audit and confirm whether or not it happened. Find out, did it or did it not? And that's all he's asking for. And the whole time he's just saying, well, you're lying. And he's like, no, Rand Paul, of all people, one of the most, honest people in Washington, D.C., really, compared to most of them. But here's the clip. I'll go ahead and play it for you.
Senator Paul, let me begin with a threshold question for you. This election was not stolen. Do you accept that fact?
Well, what I would say is that the debate over whether or not there was fraud should occur. We never had any presentation in court where we actually looked at the evidence. Most of the cases were thrown out for lack of standing, which is a procedural way of not actually hearing the question. There were several states in which the law was changed by the Secretary of State and not the state legislature. To me, those are clearly unconstitutional, and I think there's still a chance that those actually do finally work their way up to the Supreme Court. Courts traditionally and historically don't like to hear election questions. But yes, were there people who voted twice? Were there dead people who voted? Were there illegal aliens who voted? Yes, and we should get to the bottom of it. I'll give you an example. In my state, when we had a Democrat Secretary of State, she refused, even under federal order, to purge the rolls of illegal voters. We got a Republican Secretary of State, and he purged the rolls.
Senator Paul,
I have to, difference, and those things
I have to stop
occur.
you there. No election is perfect, but there were 86 challenges filed by President Trump and his allies in court. All were dismissed. Every state certified the results after investigations, counts, and recounts. The Department of Justice, led by William Barr, said there's no widespread evidence of fraud. Can't you just say the words, this election was not stolen?
What I would suggest is that if we want greater confidence in our elections, and 75% of Republicans agree with me, is that we do need to look at election integrity, and we do need to see if we can restore confidence in the elections.
Well, 75% of Republicans agree with you because they were fed a big lie by President Trump and his supporters who say the election was stolen. Why can't you say,
well, I think where
President Biden won a legitimate and fair election?
Hey, George, where you make a mistake is that people coming from the liberal side like you immediately say everything's a lie instead of saying there are two sides to everything. Historically, what would happen is if I said that I thought there was fraud, you would interview someone else who said there wasn't. But now you insert yourself in the middle and say the absolute fact is that everything I'm saying is a lie.
Well, because, Senator, I said what the president said was a lie because he said, hold on a second. He said the election was stolen. This election was not stolen. The results were certified in every single state after counts and recounts.
You're saying that absolutely it was. You're saying there was no fraud and it's all been investigated. That's just not true.
It's not what I said, sir. I said the Department of Justice found no evidence. Let me finish my point.
No, you said
something that was not true.
You say we're all liars. You're just simply saying we're all liars. And
I said it was a lie that the election was stolen.
Premise that you're right and we're wrong. Well, let's talk about the specifics of it. In Wisconsin, tens of thousands of absentee votes had only the name on them and no address. Historically, those were thrown out. This time they weren't. They made special accommodations because they said, oh, it's a pandemic, and people forgot what their address was. So they changed the law after the fact. That is wrong. That's unconstitutional. And I plan on spending the next 2 years going around state to state and fixing these problems. And I won't be cowed by liberals in the media who say, there's no evidence here and you're a liar if you talk about election fraud. No, let's have an open debate. It's a free country.
There's no widespread evidence of election fraud that overturned the results. That was stated as well by the Department of Justice, led by President Trump's Attorney General. In Wisconsin, there were counts and recounts.
Actually, it was never studied. Even that's not true. Even that's not true.
William Barr said that directly.
Barr said that, but there was. Yes, he said that, yes. That was a pronouncement. There has been no examination, thorough examination of all the states to see what problems we had and see if they could fix them. Now, let me say, to be clear, I voted to certify the state electors because I think it would be wrong for Congress to overturn that. But at the same time, I'm not willing just to sit here and say, oh, everybody on the Republican side is a liar and there is no fraud. No, there were lots of problems, and there were secretaries of state who illegally changed the law, and that needs to be fixed. And I'm going to work hard to fix it, and I won't be cowed by people saying, oh, you're a liar. That's the problem with the media today, is they say all Republicans are liars and everything we say is a lie. There are two sides to every story. Interview somebody on the other side, but don't insert yourself into the story to say we're all liars because we think there's some fraud in the election.
There are not two sides of the story. This has been looked at in every single state. The election
sure
results
there
were
are.
certified
There
in
are
every
two sides to
single
every
state.
story. George, you're forgetting who you are. You're forgetting who you are as a journalist. If you think there's only one side, you're inserting yourself into the story to say, I'm a liar because I want to look at election fraud and I want to look at secretaries of state who illegally changed the voter laws without the permission of their state legislatures. That is incontrovertible. It happened. And you can't just sweep that under the rug and say, oh, nothing to see here, and everybody's a liar, and you're a fool if you bring this up. You're inserting yourself into the story. A journalist would hear both sides, and there are two sides to this story.
I'm standing by facts. There are not two sides to facts. I did not say that this was a perfect election. I said the results were certified. I said it was not stolen. It is a lie to say
people are liars. You're saying people are liars if they want to investigate what happened in the election. Should we investigate the fact that tens of thousands of absentee ballots did not have addresses on them and normally were disqualified, but this time they were counted? Should we examine that? I don't know whether it affected the election or not, but I have an open mind, and if we actually examine this and we find out it didn't, that's fine, but it still should be fixed.
There can be more investigations. The investigations that have taken place have shown there is not enough fraud to change the results of this election. That has been certified by every state. It was stated by the Justice Department and the Attorney General.
And I accepted the state certifications, but it doesn't mean that I think that there wasn't fraud and that there weren't problems that have to be investigated, and it doesn't mean that the law wasn't broken. I believe in Pennsylvania they broke the law, and I believe if that ever would get a real hearing in the Supreme Court, it was denied for standing. It wasn't actually taken up. If it were taken up, I do believe that the Supreme Court would overrule and say that they did break the law illegally.
I asked you a very simple question. Was the election stolen or not?
I think there was a great deal of evidence of fraud and changing of the election laws illegally, and I think a thorough investigation is warranted.
Senator Paul, thanks for your time this morning.
So yeah, as you can see, the guy from ABC was just trying to get him to basically talk, and that he just kept pushing that question. When the greater thing, the bigger picture here is that there's fraud. How much of it that exists? In reality, we don't have an exact number. We know there's a considerable amount, or at least suspicious amount, that could be, hey, this could really change it, and honestly, it seems like it is. But this is just one of those things where you can't, you have to investigate. You have to look into it. It's just like, you see smoke, there may be fire, and that's enough to justify investigating. You could have found out somebody just burned something in a pan. It was no big deal. But then you could also have found out that maybe the house is starting to catch fire. And that's definitely something that is concerning and that you should be looking into. But we don't know until we actually investigate. But the thing is, it's instead on their side something like, well, you shouldn't even look into it, let alone question it. Don't question it. And that's absolutely and utterly insane. And then talking about the Patriot Party and everything, here's a clip from Newsmax. Again, all the sources below. So definitely, if you want to delve into something, check out the sources below. And also check out my Gab. I'll usually clip things up and have lots of clips up there and everything too if you want to look into that. But here's something from Newsmax TV talking about the Patriot Party.
Former President Donald Trump vowing a return to politics in yesterday's ceremonial farewell. Take a listen.
The things that we've done have been just incredible, and I couldn't have done it without you. So just a goodbye. We love you. We will be back in some form.
Trump has reportedly brought up the topic of forming a new political party in the future. The Patriot Party is what he would call it. Joining us now to talk about this, the host of America Right Now on Newsmax here, Tom Basile. Welcome to the show. Nice to see you.
Good to see you, Rob.
You know, the president has floated this idea before. He is a businessman at heart, and throughout his presidency, he will float an idea, sort of gauge the reaction, and then make his decision based on that reaction. Do you think this is something that he actually does over the next couple of months or years?
I don't. I think that it's very dangerous, and I think that his advisors, unless they're just looking to make a lot of money off of it, his advisors are going to say, hey, this hasn't worked before. I tend to think that this is a bit of a veiled threat to Mitch McConnell or to congressional leaders and others that he may try to primary. But look, Rob, good politics has always been about addition and multiplication, not division and subtraction. And we saw in Georgia that when the Republican Party is not totally united, it loses in tight races, in swing districts, in swing states. And if you look back at history, and I'll just take the national level stuff, when you look back at history, Injecting a third party, typically doesn't go well. Teddy Roosevelt ended up beating the heck out of William Howard Taft, his own protege, in 1912, and that gave us Woodrow Wilson. Wilson, the father of the administrative state. We saw in this election Jo Jorgensen from the Libertarian Party. She was the margin of the Biden victory in a number of states that could have flipped this election to Donald Trump, or certainly made it electorally a heck of a lot closer. A lot of people think that George H.W. Bush was beaten by Bill Clinton. He actually wasn't. He was beaten by Ross Perot.
So like 20% of the vote in 1992, right? So Ross Perot was a serious candidate with 20% of the vote. That we might not have had Bill Clinton in the early 90s there, in the subsequent second term as well. President Trump has got 74 million people voted for him. Not everyone is in ardent, they're supporters of the party, maybe. I'm sure they like what President Trump accomplished. Maybe they weren't fond of his tweets and things like that. Of course, we see that all the time. But the president, he would siphon off a huge number of Republican voters in the midterms or in 2024 if he were to do something like this.
Yeah, the party, look, the Democrats have a superior get-out-the-vote operation. They have a superior human infrastructure. Remember, Joe Biden is going to be paying off all these public employees unions, all these liberal causes over the next 2 and 4 years, and that's only going to strengthen them. So it becomes even more important for conservatives in this country, for Republicans to stick together. Because if you take even 2, 3, 5% of the vote away from some of these congressional candidates and the down ballot races underneath them, it makes the difference.
It's fascinating, too, to see this act. Don't forget, President Trump was a Democrat for a long time before he was a Republican. He is, if anything, a chameleon and a smart businessman. So it wouldn't surprise me. There were rumors that he was going to be involved with us here at Newsmax. I would welcome him on the show anytime. I'm sure you would do the same. But Absolutely. President Trump he's not going anywhere. I think he'll take a little time, play some golf, and sort of come up for air, if you will. But I wouldn't be surprised if President Trump is back in the not-so-distant future.
Rob, I think the best thing for the president to do, and I think it would benefit Republicans, it would certainly benefit his movement, is to really focus on rehabilitating himself and his legacy, really talking about what he accomplished during his time in office. History takes a long time to write, and if you look at Carter, if you look at Nixon, Truman, and so many others, we're still evaluating their impact. And I think that the president really needs first a strategy on how he's going to articulate his legacy before he kind of jumps back into party politics or tries to mix it up the way that he was talking about with the Patriot Party.
Tom Basile, I like having you on the show. We got to do this again.
Thank you, sir. Great to be here.
This was fun. Good to see you, my friend.
And one of the things you could definitely speculate upon, definitely with how he worded it and everything, this is not gospel, this is not fact. This is just basically trying to speculate upon the future. Maybe he means that in another form or way, they'll be back, as in they could already be talking about or planning secession in the background, or have been, and knew after this election and after everything that happened, there is no way to make peace. There's no way to work together. There's no way to compromise. There's no way to do anything like that anymore. It can't exist. And even before all this craziness, people were already thinking this was going to happen to some extent. Now it's just like we're on that path. And with the current administration, they're only going to accelerate that. They have no interest in trying to prevent it. Why would they? Or they're either just so full of it that they think there's no possibility they will. But it's definitely quite insane. Here's a little clip here someone made of a speech Trump gave, or part of a speech Trump gave. It's actually really good. I would recommend watching it all the way through, but I'll go ahead and play the clip for you here.
If I give you one message to hold in your hearts today, it's this: treat the word impossible as nothing more than motivation. Relish the opportunity to be an outsider, because it's the outsiders who change the world and who make a real and lasting difference. The more that a broken system tells you that you're wrong, the more certain you should be that you must keep pushing ahead. You must keep
pushing forward.
I have to say it's been a while since the president actually said something that was quote worthy, to be honest, that wasn't either laughable or overwhelmingly disappointing. But I want to go ahead and just start to wind down the show here, get you into the quote of the day and everything, but just wanting to recap everything. This is the reason why states are talking about secession. People think this isn't a thing, or that you can't do it, or you're not allowed to. You are. The 10th Amendment guarantees that, and our Constitution guarantees that. It is not illegal. It is not wrong to have a peaceful divorce. We can leave. The thing is, it's not the thing about leaving that scares them. It's that we could succeed without them. And just doing that proves them wrong, proves them incapable, and would also just completely bleed them dry. They would drill themselves into the ground, and then everyone would just exodus and leave. And the scary thing is if something like this ever did occur or did happen, how far would they be willing to go? Because as far as we would go, it wouldn't be military intervention. It would be leaving and then just saying, leave me the hell alone. But that means it would be up to them. And honestly, I would think that they would be okay with doing virtually almost anything, because they just don't care anymore. You're not valued as a human being anymore in their eyes. You're just something that they want to dispose of and get rid of. But to go ahead and move on to the quote of the day, this one actually comes from President Abraham Lincoln, which I thought was a pretty good one. I know he's kind of controversial just because a lot of the things he did were unconstitutional, but does the ends justify the means? And usually no. A lot of people would argue in his case that yes, but that's up for you to decide, for you to make an independent choice on. But the quote is, "We the people are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who pervert the Constitution." Again, that quote is, "We the people are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who pervert the Constitution." Abraham Lincoln. Just to show that whenever you overthrow your government, or if you're somebody who challenges your government, you're not challenging the Constitution, you're challenging those who supposedly represent you and that Constitution. The Constitution itself is not flawed. It's the people who execute it. And a lot of people want to act like, on that side of the table, the Constitution is the problem. The Constitution is not the problem. The problem is how you guys on that side want to interpret it, which is just insane. But do remember to like, subscribe, comment below, email me, anonymousamericanpodcast@protonmail.com. Check me out on Gap social media. Be posting clips and updates, stuff like that. But I definitely hope you had a wonderful weekend and you have a wonderful Sunday and that your week gets a great start. And I'll go ahead and talk to you guys tomorrow. And don't forget, donate to the Ethereum wallet below. I keep forgetting that. It's down in the description on my Gab, everywhere I post. You have a great day.